Can the Bucks pick up the pieces? Camille and I try to do it and also correct all the wrong things we have heard past 48 hours about the Bucks, Giannis, and the state of the NBA. We get into it coming up after this on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day, and for helping make the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network in the industry. You can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network every single game. You can hear and see Camille as part of our Locked On NBA coverage weekly and the Technical Foul podcast as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. So, you know,
understandable.
Imagine talking about that on the network portion of the game broadcast several times this season. It's been quite an adventure this year, Camille. And did you put the clown makeup on before the Celtics game and firmly believe? Like, did we both paint ourselves with the makeup in the mirror? Like, all right, there's no Tatum, there's no Brown, Giannis is back, so are we. Or did you know better?
I went into that and said, ooh, this is going to be one of those games where you should not lose. Therefore, I am nervous. That was my exact response when I saw, like, I am nervous, because we talked about whenever Giannis does come back, there is going to be a period of kind of like a readjustment with people trying to figure out what their roles are with him on the court. So he was going to have a little rust on top of that. So I was like, okay, it could be a little bumpy here going forward, but this is the ideal situation, right? There's no Brown, there's no Tatum. Cato was out in this game as well. They're small. And I was like, this could actually be the perfect type of game to reintroduce Giannis to kind of get that rust off, to kind of work through like the relearning curves of playing together again. And it still went worse than my very low expectations of going into the game. As soon as that like lead for the Celtics ballooned up to like 22, that's when I was just kind of like, wow, like this is where we are. This is where we are. 3 games in a row where you lose by at least 23 points. 3 games in a row. And the game against the Bulls was the one where you heard the locker room saying like, it's a bad taste in our mouth, and the good news is that we have a game tomorrow. And then tomorrow happened, and it was not any better than what we saw at the United Center.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like you're almost numb to it now. And on the one hand, I was almost done, but then you're like, why should I be? Like, you just mentioned it. The last 6 losses, Camille, have been by 154 points. Like they're losing by 26 points on average the last 6 times that they lose. So they're either winning or they're losing by 26 points is basically the last 3 weeks that we've seen from this group. I mean, I think last night, and people have been very critical. I don't think so much about you, because you've been able to say a little more than me. There's only so much I can get into for the obvious reasons.
Right.
Last night should have given you an illustration of where this team is at. That's not, I don't want to take anything away from the Celtics players, because, you know, they're still NBA players. I said coming into the season, I think Boston is basically going to suck. Yeah. I think they're kind of quiet quitting here. I don't think they're going to be a postseason team. They're probably, best case scenario, a play-in tournament team. Basically where the Bucks are is what I thought the Celtics would be. I didn't think the Bucks would be where Boston is right now. But how have they gotten there? Without Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown taking on a different role is, I don't think you would look at that roster that the Bucks played last night and say, that is a really talented team. I think you would
No.
probably look at it and say the Bucks have more talent than this team, so therefore they should win. And the reason why Boston won last night and why they've continued to win throughout this season is last night specifically, they won on the margin. So, like, stop me if you've heard this before, but the Bucks turned the ball over. They lost the rebounding battle. They gave opponents points off of turnovers. They didn't score any, like, up and down the list. But that is a team that you faced that doesn't have as much talent. That version of it doesn't have as much talent as you. But they have role players that know what their role is. They have a clear identity as a team. They have a pretty good coach. And every single player on the floor last night for the Celtics, they played hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many times we could say that for this Bucks team versus their opponents this season. Clearly not the majority of the games. And like, that's how you can offset some of those things, right? Look at Phoenix. Phoenix isn't the most talented team in the league, but they bring in Jordan Ott, who brings in offense that fits this era of the league. They have young guys that are playing hard and that know and believe in what this new system and identity is. Like, if you're not going to get all those things lined up and on board, you're just not going to win in this league. And the Bucks now are what we were talking about this morning. What is it, like 96 and 96, something like that? I think
Under Doc Rivers era
took over, yeah, including the playoffs. You were 500 in a weaker conference with Giannis, and I know there's been injuries, but with Giannis and Damian Lillard for a bulk of that time, you've been a 500 team. That should tell you all you need to know.
Coaches have been fired for far less than that with the expectations that this Milwaukee Bucks team has had. I mean, you can point to the firing that got Doc Rivers in the door, where the team was, having a winning record, but behind the scenes, there was a little bit of a lack of faith, so to speak, in the coach. And that's one of those moves in retrospect where people are going to look at like that was a mistake. But I think the mistake was in the actual hire that was made after that Griffin move. But that part aside, like, it's just been the last few years. Yes, you can look at things and have reasons. We talked about this before. Reasons are excuses. And at this point, it feels like a Bucks team with excuses because the leash has been long enough. You've had the opportunity. And yes, there have been injuries. But to be in March and see a team that still lacks an identity, that's concerning. Like, it is too far on in the season for the questions to remain. Yes, there is going to be the readjustment period, like I said, of, hey, my role's adjusting because our superstar is coming back. Yes, that is fair. But again, the entire season, when Giannis was healthier, when he was not healthy, this team has had losses that you look at and you're just like, they're not executing. The effort is not there for them to do so. It's just not working. You look at the numbers, like, this is the team where people who are anti-analytics and people who are very much so into the numbers can both look at this Bucks team and agree this is not a good team. And you would expect them to be better with what they have. And that's just been the case for the team all year. The only thing that they've done exceptionally well consistently this season is put the ball in the hoop. The problem is that they don't tend to get as many shots as their opponent. And on top of that, too, in the last two games where your offense stalls and you don't have a defense to lean on, you see what happens very, very quickly when all that you have is offense. So it's just been a very disappointing season so far. And I'm at a point where, like you said, it's like I'm kind of numb inside with the losses, where I more so just laugh at this point of like, this is who the Milwaukee Bucks are so far this season. Like, they have proven to be consistently inconsistent with subpar coaching at the helm.
I do want to get back to one thing that you said about all these changes that they went through, because I think there's an interesting view of these last couple of years that we can spend a little bit of time on. But there's only so much more to say about this loss in these last 6 losses, as we mentioned, and you and Frank unfortunately had to fall on the grenade last night.
Happy birthday, Frank.
Yeah, what a night for Frank. So I do want to pivot away to if we're going to have to deal with inconsistencies and poor play, can we at least get things right in the discourse around this team? Because I've heard a lot of inaccuracies, just idiotic things that are out there. So we'll get into that conversation coming up next. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if you really get your situation going here. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with real tax experts, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. Just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment now. And you can still sign up for the Everydayer Club as well. You get ad-free episodes of Locked On Bucks, access to the Discord server as well for Bucks, every other team, and a general NBA, as well as maybe just maybe Bucks fans are shifting to the general consensus of the league and more draft talk now. But you can find the link to sign up for the Everydayer Club in the show notes of today's episode. So when you mentioned the change and what was the real mistake, I mean, look, you lost your identity when you fired Mike Budenholzer.
True. Yes.
I'm not going to try to. I don't know everything that happened behind the scenes. What I do know is it certainly feels like it's still pretty frosty between Bud and the organization. I know there was a lot going on off the court for Bud personally, leading up to that firing, which I'm sure he probably still doesn't feel great about being fired shortly after that. And also by the way, we won a title 2 years ago. I know we lost as a 1 seed, but come on, like we can regroup and do some other things here. So I think there's a lot of that. You lost your identity. And I think you just look at everything they did that summer, Camille, to go to a new coach and then do now let's trade Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard. Like just do one of these things, right? Either bring back Bud and bring in Dame and just say, okay, Bud, now we're going to give you an offensive closer and we're going to keep all these same principles and the defense is going to remain the same. Or Adrian Griffin wants to play an aggressive style defense. Okay, well, Malik Beasley kind of fits pretty well in that regard next to Drew Holiday. We'll see how this aggressive forcing turnover defense works with a guy like Drew Holiday, but they just opted for change everywhere. The Griff move, I think what we all kind of questioned at the time was this isn't a move you make when your contention window is still open. And that was what never really lined up, I don't think, with any of us. Like, I'm not saying first-timers haven't had success because, I mean, look at Nick Nurse when he took over the Raptors. But it traditionally isn't what you see, especially with a veteran team of, yeah, you kind of want that veteran coach, too, that's going to be a player's coach type that here's the system, not going to rock the boat here. I'm just going to be the new guy that comes in and we keep things rolling in the right direction. So it just kind of seemed like from the onset, like, are we changing too much? We're not really picking a lane here. The lanes that we are picking, we're trying to pick multiple lanes. Like, to me, it all goes back to that summer of where you lost your identity. And again, I'm willing to listen to either side. Right. I don't have one strong take one way or another on whether or not they should have actually made that coaching change after the Heat series. But everything they've done since then, it's remarkable how much basically none of it has worked out.
Yeah, on various levels, right? Like the coaching, it hasn't worked out. And the only thing about the Doc hire initially that I said, well, this might be a positive for it, because again, you guys can go back and check the tape on my actual live reaction thoughts to it. We got Doc at home. is that like, hey, he is a good personality manager with Giannis and Dame and Chris and Brooke. Like, let's see if he can kind of manage these personalities. And even though I don't have the confidence in like the Endgame adjustments and the things of that sort, hey, we've seen talent already overcome coaching early in the season. Let's see that continue. The first year with Doc, you had the unfortunate injuries. Chris got injured like shortly after Doc took over. You had Giannis go down as well. So then in the playoff series against the Pacers, you really only had Chris and Dame, and then Dame got hurt partway through that. So then all you had left was Chris. And there was a lack of talent and depth on that Bucks team. So that is what it is at that point. But then the following year, where it's the Dame and the Giannis year, and it's like, okay, we're still not seeing the adjustments, still not thinking that, but hey, maybe talent can overcome again. And that was not the case. And then you had injuries again down the stretch there. So you didn't have Dame in that one. And he comes back and then you lose Dame again. But even with the health, like the team still wasn't operating the way that you would expect them to with who they had on that roster. You go into this season and it's like, well, hey, the roster makes a little bit more sense. You have some more two-way guys on the roster. Like it made more sense in year 2, year 3. Okay, let's see how you can continue to build on that. And you expected and needed jumps from certain players like Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins, and you've gotten them to a degree here. So it's like, hey, you would imagine if the Bucks have a guy on their team who's, top 3 in most improved player voting, things are going swimmingly. You made this drastic move to waive Damian Lillard and bring in Miles Turner because you needed a new center who fit next to Giannis. You did all these things that, in a sense, it makes sense. But the execution has just been terrible. And on top of the poor execution, you pair that in with bad injury luck. And there is no quote unquote like amount of talent in that situation where you're like, this can overcome everything else that is against this team right now. So it's been rough sledding ever since that coaching change was made. And even if you go back to Mike Budenholzer, like when it happened in real time, I said, maybe it feels like it's just time where the players probably need a new voice. They just need to figure something out. But the subsequent hires from that point, they just weren't the right ones. And then on top of that, the way the roster was constructed, especially with what the coaches were trying to do, did not make sense. So it feels like we're at a point now with how things are going, how this season has gone, even with the stretch of games where they were playing better. And it was like, hey, are we building upon something? Let's see how long this can last. The comp got better and the results reverted back to old things that we saw before. So now it's a situation where I feel like what the plan should be for the rest of this season is evaluating whatever you have on this roster. Let's try to figure this out as much as we can. If that leads to a play-in spot, cool. We'll go from there and figure that out. If it doesn't, cool. It's a good draft. We will figure it out going forward. But the last 22 games, they have to be like, what do we have here? And what should we keep going forward? Because we know a lot of changes need to be made for this team to get back into contention, not just on the roster, but the coaching and maybe even front office changes. So like things need to change. Let's figure out what we do have and see what might hold over going forward.
Yeah, it's well, I should be careful on how I phrase it and what I say here, but it for a group that has been very, and I don't even mean this in a negative sense, reactionary at times, but not averse to change.
Yes.
That is it's the elephant in the room and the thing that is most startling right now of, wow, okay, so we moved quickly on firing Bud. We moved quickly after 43 games, and I'm not even saying specifically firing the head coach, but you've seen this chain of moves to say, okay, got to fix this. The moves that you made in the offseason to turn 2 DJs into a PJs you reference all the time, like that was in a matter of months. And you haven't seen it in this last, year and a half. It's been totally different is one of the other big changes for this group as well. I agree with your point too on how to view the final 22 games and what you're looking for here. And it kind of leads into a larger discussion that is taking place everywhere, which you had some thoughts on. I had some thoughts on other components to it, and a lot of what I've had to sit through and hear on social media and through the airwaves these past couple of days. So we'll get into that conversation coming up after this. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moments. Getting tickets, though, that's not always so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. You pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and you'll have tickets loaded within minutes. You see all-in pricing up front, too, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. You can even view the seats before you make the buy, making that purchase decision even easier. And they have zone deals, too, where you choose the section. Game Time picks the seats, and you end up saving big. Great last-minute options are out there, too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices, and everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That is code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. So for the final 22 games, I mean, things like yesterday, okay, I guess we're now going to start Ousmane Dieng again. Great. I think we should see that. I'm not quite sure why we didn't see this earlier, but all right, fine. This is how we should view it the rest of the way. What does he look like next to Ryan Rollins? Are we going to play Giannis for 18, whatever it is, games? How does he look next to Giannis? That's going to be big, too. Jericho Sims, how does he fit around some of these guys? Like, literally everything is on the table for this group to see who are your go-forward guys. How many do you have on this roster, and how do they look together? What other guys have we discovered? I'm aligned with you. That's how you play these final 22 games here. And, I mean, you had a different angle on it, which I didn't even take into consideration. But all we've heard for the last couple of days is like, well, why are the Bucks doing this? They should just shut it down and tank. Mm-hmm. I mean, first of all, it's not like they can make up any ground, really.
Right.
You know, like, well, just shut it down. Like, why are they even playing Giannis? Why are you bringing him back? Well, if he wants to come back and play, and if you want him here next year, which they do, fine, then he's going to play. Mm-hmm. But to say, like, well, shut him down, why are you even doing this? Because you're just hurting your draft odds. Where do we sit right now? So the Bucks have the 10th worst record in the league. Look, it's past. The time has passed here. The 8 wins in 10 game stretch. That was the cherry on. Yeah, that was the cherry on top of it. It was already slipping away from you then. But look, the team's beneath you. Realistically, if you said, all right, we're shutting you down, you're not playing again starting tomorrow, we're shutting it down for the season, and we're going to try to really tank into the lottery here. Realistically, you can slide down to the 8th worst record. Mm-hmm. That's it. I mean, you're already 5 games in front of the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas has no incentive to win games. You're 9 games in front of New Orleans Pelicans, 9 games in front of the Utah Jazz, and they're only going to get uglier. 10 games in front of the Wizards, 11 games in front of the Nets, 12 games in front of the Pacers, 14 games in front of the Kings. Like, you're not getting down to that group. Even if you say we're going to lose every single game. Okay. I mean, the odds are the Kings, the Pacers, the Nets, the Wizards, the Jazz, they're going to lose a majority of their games. So maybe you made 4 games. Congratulations. You're double-digit games back of them anyway. So, yeah, I mean, to come out with we'll just tank and increase your odds. Okay, to go from 10th best odds to 8th best odds. So you go from a 4% chance of getting into the top 4 to a 6% chance. And even then, the pick swap complicates things. And that is why from the onset, the Bucks were never going to embrace tanking, because New Orleans has no incentive to tank. I just mentioned they're 9 games behind you, but New Orleans is basically the flower that's going to grow from the concrete in that group. That's the one team that says, well, wait a minute, we're going to try to win here. We don't have our pick anyway, so screw it. We're just going for it. So, I mean, fine. Guess what? You could go into the let's start to tank mode, and then what happens when New Orleans passes you and you move up to the top 3 in the lottery? New Orleans is picking 11th. Great idea then.
Right, you got the 11th pick, and on top of that too, just the conversation around tanking that has been in the NBA so far this year, right? I've been on record saying I don't think that there's a way to actually curb tanking because I mean the draft is still one of the best ways to try to improve your team immediately, especially if you're in less desirable markets, right? So that being said, the NBA's idea behind the draft lottery and the most idealistic form of it is like it's not because the teams with the worst record don't have the worst record because they've been sitting guys who are healthy or pulling them before the fourth quarter or doing these other little games to try to keep guys out. But they are playing and they're just bad. Okay. They are playing who they're supposed to be playing and it's not working out. Maybe injuries hit them for real and they're figuring things out. But that's the intent. The intent is not like, hey, dude is healthy but we want a better draft pick, so we're just gonna sit them like that. That's not the intent. And there's been so much conversation around that in the NBA this year. I was kind of surprised to see that there were people speaking, like national media heads talking and saying, "What are the Bucks doing by bringing Giannis back? They should just be tanking." And to your point, one, tank to where? Like, how much further do you think the Bucks can go? But two, isn't that the thing that you don't want the league to be doing right now? Isn't the whole idea of this like if you're bad, you get rewarded and that's how you improve, not where we're pulling strings to be bad. If Giannis wants to play and get that run, and especially after a season that he's had where he has been out of the lineup in ways that we haven't seen for Giannis, where it's been injury after injury, and to his own point, he's felt like he's been playing at a deficit. And he's finally at a point that he feels like, hey, I feel pretty good right now. Like I'm ready to play some basketball. Let him hoop. Let him hoop, and then you figure out the things around him. Like, I don't understand how the Bucks are also catching flack for Giannis playing, but then they catch flack for Giannis not playing, where it's like there's no way to win in that situation. Right. So, like, just hoop at this point, and whatever the results are, because the Bucks are too far gone now to really try to tank, quote unquote, into a great draft position. Anyways, just play the basketball and see what happens, which again is the whole idea of how the lottery is supposed to work anyways.
Right. We're fed up with the Utah Jazz, but like, why aren't the Bucks tanking in the next sentence? And look, I'll say this too. Granted, I haven't heard this take, but if your take is why are they bringing him back and why are they playing him? Pause. What if he re-aggravates that injury and gets hurt again? Because that would be the absolute worst case scenario on a number of fronts. Obviously, you know, whether or not if it comes to a parting of the ways, what that means thereof. Well, if there's an injury here and that prolongs it, what does that mean? But also, what if there's an injury that knocks him out for a part of the season and he wants to stay here, and then you're back in the same spot of, all right, we're kind of looking at the same Dame situation we had a season ago. Like, that is the worst case scenario. So if that's your take of why are you bringing him back? What if this? All right, fine. Yeah. I'll at least entertain and listen to that, but that's not what we're hearing. And it just, look, the league has done this to themselves too with, you know, I mean, it's the it's the man in the hot dog costume skit from I Think You Should Leave of like, now we're trying to figure out why everybody's so carried away with tanking, and you know, we've incentivized it for years for all these teams. And well, actually this is, and look, that's the complicated study too of, I was getting into it with a radio caller a couple of games ago who had the same thought that like, just tank, shut it down, and like play for a draft pick. Again, there's a pick swap. So it's not as simple as, well, we got a 10% chance to get into the top 4. That pick number has a 10% chance to get in the top 4. You better hope the Pelicans are in front of you or that pick's going to Atlanta. But also, there is this kind of notion too of like, well, just tank it and it'll solve your problems. And you can point to Oklahoma City, who did pull a tank that year that they had Chris Paul. Obviously, the famous one is Philadelphia, and there are teams that have done this. Dallas tanked to get into the play-in tournament. That's not how they got Cooper Flagg. They got Derek Lively doing that, or tanked to get out of the play-in tournament. So it's happened a lot. But do you know who the last number 1 pick to win a championship was?
Ooh. Is it Bron?
No,
it can't be. Who is it?
Andrew Wiggins.
Wiggins, of course.
That is the last number 1 pick that has won a championship. For how much we value it. Yes. So Now, look, there's a very good chance that's going to change pretty soon here with Anthony Edwards and Victor Wembanyama, and who knows, maybe Cooper Flag too. But we're talking over a decade since it's happened. Like, you need good picks is the story. You can find guys anywhere. Giannis was outside of the lottery. Nikola Jokic, a second-round pick. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't, a top 5 pick. You can find guys all throughout the draft. You just need a volume of draft picks is basically how you got to get there. And the Bucks have not had that for quite some time. So, yeah, it's like, and the league has done that to themselves with the whole tanking discourse, also with just making things so confusing, because that's the other thing when you hear people that don't necessarily lean. I mean, Camille, we've heard enough of it.
Yeah.
This market likes to talk about the Packers, and the other two teams are just things that happen on the side. When you hear those Packers shows dig into, let's talk about the Bucks, and you're like, no, not true. Like, there's so much confusion over the picks too. Like, New Orleans, Atlanta's record has nothing to do with it. Atlanta is just getting the best pick here. So it's not a swap 3 ways. And the league makes this confusing with their pick swaps and allowing multiple teams to get in and lottery protections too. So, I mean, that's the thing. Let's just start clean here. There's no more protections. Swaps we're done with too. We're not doing pick swaps anymore either, or it's 2 teams. We're not doing this. Boston has a piece of it, and the Wizards have a piece of it, and the Blazers have a piece of it. We're cleaning all that up, and we're going to have to try to find a way to, I mean, novel thought, incentivize teams to try to be good rather than losing.
And that's the hard part. Because like I said, I'm not sure what they can do. I think there are always going to be teams that try to figure out the way to step on the line as close as they possibly can without actually going over it. And I think like the Jazz were a team that felt like they were bouncing on that line very delicately by having guys play, but then sending them out. The Raptors even did that last year down the stretch where they had guys playing in the game, but then down the stretch, they sat. So it's like other teams have like they're figuring things out. Like, hey, how can we try to tilt this in our favor? And the NBA is pretty much like, we're done with it, which again is like, then where are we upset with Giannis wanting to play basketball? So that is what it is. I'll say this because I know we're running close on time here. Are you putting the clown makeup on ahead of this Hawks game tomorrow? Are you having the faith in the Bucks being able to find a way to pull out this victory against the Hawks, a game that they need in this play-in chase at this point, especially after the last 3 games?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't spend any time on it, but this is their biggest game of the season because if you do win it, you're right back in there I mean, I honestly have no expectations one way or another that we've just been hurt too many times that I can't expect one thing or the other of. No, I'm not putting it on, but I'm keeping it nearby. I guess I'll leave it there. I haven't taken it out of the case yet is the way to put it there. So yeah, the big one tomorrow against the Atlanta Hawks, and it's a late tip too, 8:30 at Fiserv Forum, a national game for the Bucks and the Hawks for Ousmane Dieng versus Jonathan Kuminga. That's what ESPN had in mind when they scheduled this game. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of feedback on this one and what to do if you're the Bucks. We are certainly all ears and curious what the consensus is, but it has been a very we're all just tired.
Yeah.
Not only today, not this week, these last 2+ years. I'm just tired.
Yeah, it's like I told you, we getting hazed, Justin. Ever since we came on this show and took over as the host, things have just been it's been a test. It's been a test this entire time.
And meanwhile, the other guy just gets to go live his best life at Bristol, and now I see him visiting LA and
at All-Star games and
All-Star game, getting free gummies from Giannis too.
Right.
I mean, wow. That'll do it for today's show. Want to remind you once again to sign up for the Everydayer Club. You get ad-free episodes of Locked On Bucks, exclusive access to the Discord server as well. You can find the link to sign up for the Everydayer Club in the show notes of today's episode. So coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll have the recap of the Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks. For those of you in video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make that your second listen, NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. That'll do it for today. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.